Good morning, Jay. Thank you for the little delay. We are going to wait for Jeff Hammond to get on, and then you'll carry on.
Great. You know, you could have just let Michelle talk. That would have been, he's more interesting. That would have been fine.
He might have been. Hi, Jay. I'm Jeff Hammond. Nice to meet you, sir.
Likewise. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I was enjoying it too, but at the same time, I need to meet the man who was creative enough to come up with the 24 hours of limits. And the thing is, I'm gonna make sure I put this out here first. So when I say something, I do have at least an understanding of what goes on, because I've been in Greg Biffle's shop and I have seen the cars that he has built, and he explained to me what went on. And let's face it, Greg Biffle is a whale of a race car driver.
Yeah.
But he knows how to have fun, you know? And he reiterated, and this has been a couple of years ago when I went to his place to see this. I mean, this has been going on for quite a while. This is a very successful event. And I'm going to stop right there. But that's my endorsement from a guy that knows how to win races and knows what real racing is all about, but he also understands what fun racing could be about and should be about. And that's what you brought to the table.
Well, I'm glad to hear Biffle say that. And yeah, he's got a sense of humor. He's got a great attitude that fits in with what we do. And that's pretty rare for a guy who has made it to the level that he's made it to. I mean, he's that guy's the real deal, if anybody is. And the fact that he still has that sense of fun is great. It's and you know, not a lot of guys do when they make it to that level. It's because they're deadly serious. So yeah, we love to have him. Haven't seen him in a while, but he's a good guy.
No, but what it brings to the forefront is, in my mind, when I hear about your series and I see what you put together, is a day when everybody got together either at lunch or after you got through working at the day, and you went down to the local, go-kart track to sit out in the parking lot, drink beer, and then run in there and go-kart race for a while and talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody had equal equipment, and, nobody was getting, super crazy about it. And your I don't know, even your rule book. I mean, I read through your rules and how and different things, and it has this ring of, hey guys, let's have fun. Let's don't do nothing stupid, but don't think we're dumb. I mean, because you don't want people taking advantage of you either. I don't want to call you out because you try to run a fast one on me,
I gotta say, you introduced us as this is real racing, or whatever you said, and I'm always flattered when somebody says that. But what we do is really different from what everybody else who's going to be talking here. I don't even feel like I belong in this group, because everybody else who's going to be on this webinar is dealing with the top 1% of people who are competitive, and they're driven, and they're serious, and they really want to win. That's what motorsport is for. That's what the industry is for right now in the participant world. And we're really about the other 99%. Every car lover has dreamed of getting in a race car. Every single one. There's not a single one who hasn't had that fantasy. And 99% never do. And we just sort of thought that was a weird, that's a real weird reality. And I think for us, we realized, we're not that 1%. We're not that driven elite that wants to step on the other guy's head at all costs so that we could be on that podium. We just want to have fun. We want to show up. We want to see what it's like out there on a racetrack. And some of our guys are very successful and they move up. Some of our guys are, doing what we would call real racing now. But for the most part, we're the guys who, they want to know what it's like. They want to build a car. They want to try something nutty on a car. And if it blows up, they don't really care. They're just there to barbecue and see their friends and play with their cars and have a good time. So it's a whole different thing than most of what you guys are talking about on this show.
No, and I agree to that, and I give you that. But that's the reason why I want to give you credit for being willing to be honest about it. And that's one of the things that Greg said to me when I got talking to him about it, is that it's the way we all wish racing could be at the elite level.
Well,
That you wouldn't feel the pressure.
yeah.
It's like, say, I don't care if it blows up. But why don't you explain to us just a little bit for those that are watching maybe for the first time and haven't taken the opportunity to go to your website and see what you got going on. I mean, just the fact that your entry vehicle is $500. I mean, that's what you can spend on it, $500, excluding safety equipment.
Yeah. And so the conceit is really simple. You can't spend more than $500 on anything that'll make you or the car go fast, but you can spend as much as you want that's going to keep you alive. That's the conceit of the pricing. Now, racing is racing, and we have no illusions that if you make a rule, everybody ain't going to try to break it. Of course, they're going to try to break it, and a lot of people will break it. Unlike Michelle, who really is working that problem clearly, and he's got a number system and a $5,000 protest for the motor. My life isn't long enough to deal with that. I mean, he's doing it right. He knows how to solve that problem for guys who really want it out to the last decimal point. Our attitude is, you spend $500 on a car. If it gets destroyed, it's not going to kill you. You can monkey with it if you want. And if some guy shows up and he actually spent $550 on his car and you get all up in arms and your butt hurt about that, you think it's not fair, you should go to Michelle's race. If a guy doesn't have a really good chance of winning, he just wants to get track time and he's got, I don't know, Mercedes 6.9 from 30 years ago that's probably not a $500 car, he's not going to win anything. Our point is, if you're just showing up to have fun and you're not using your checkbook to step on some other guy's head and you're not being obnoxious, just come race. So the basic conceit, though, is you can't spend more than $500 on a car, and you get some pretty amazing cars. If you find a 3 Series BMW that won't pass California smog, somebody will pay you to take it out of their driveway. So you can actually build some pretty good cars. We get a lot of Miatas that come out of the junkyard. We got a lot of old BMWs, a lot of old Hondas. My first Lemons car was a '88 Corolla GTS that had literally been rear-ended by a dump truck. So it was pushed into the rear axle, but hey, the rest of the car was great. That was the very first race we did. And within 20 minutes, with that car, within 20 minutes, the oil pressure was at 0. It was on the hot peg and it had no charge. And I'm just like, well, I'm going to keep driving. And being a Toyota, it lasted 24 hours. So, you have experiences like that when you're racing crappy cars that you could throw away that you're just never going to have racing real cars. So that's the first conceit. We go all over the country. We have a couple dozen races around the country. They're all endurance format. They're weekend long. Usually we will stop overnight and people can barbecue and drink beer and BS and, do the fun part of racing rather than racing full 24 hours. Is pretty horrible. I've done it. It's exhausting. Nobody should have to do it, but we do at least 1 or 2 of those a year as well. And I think the endurance format, which we fell into backward, this was never planned. We just kind of fell into this thing. The endurance format has been great for this, particularly for people who wanted to go racing but never did before, because it forces you to get together with friends and it forces you to every week leading up to the race, you got to go to the buddy's house. You got to get the head gasket replaced. You got to do these other things. Suddenly you're doing something, you're working toward a goal with your buddies. That's one advantage of the endurance format. And the other advantage of the endurance format is it's just a lot of track time. And you can, in a Lemons race, you can get 14 hours of track time in a weekend, and you might have 1,000 passing situations during that race. That's more than a typical sprint sports car racer is going to get in a 15-year career. So it's just a lot coming at you at once. And because I don't think anybody takes it too terribly seriously, what happens. And at the end of the day, you're back with your friends barbecuing.
So make sure that I point this out. You said that, you've got some experience. So you've done, I'm going to use the term very loosely.
You listen, you don't have to worry about offending me. Whatever you're going to say, I've heard it before.
No, but you have been at the professional or the elite level. You've done, I hate using the word, but you've done the serious side also. So you have
Yeah.
experiences behind the wheel.
Sure, but I was never very good. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot worse. I learned really early on, I think 99% of people who do get on the track, they have the same experience that I had, which is you're out there and you're figuring it out and you're pushing and you're like, oh, I think I got this. This is great. And then sooner or later, some guy goes past you and he's really good. And you realize, he's playing a different game than I am. No matter
Right.
how great I ever am, that's talent, and I'm just doing a lot of this. So I never had any illusions, that this was going to be a thing, or I never had any illusions after the first 5 minutes of actually trying to do it that, that I was going to really be a serious name. And a lot of what we do is, that's the reality for most people. And, there's beer league softball, and there's a lot of things you can do. There, people can go to the county courts and play tennis for the rest of their lives. You don't have to be Andre Agassi to have a great time playing tennis. And we just figured there ought to be something in motorsport that's the equivalent of that.
No, I agree with that. It's like I happen to know a few people that are more into pickleball now because it's a little easier on you than tennis. But you're competing. And I think that's the one thing. Today, we've gone through this society, and we're there at the moment. A lot of emphasis on iRacing and simulators. And the problem is, you're not going to spend $500 on one of those and have probably as much fun as you're going to have in one of yours. I think that's the biggest difference. It's you got personal interaction.
Yeah.
You've got something that nobody can take away from you. I mean, it's like, I don't know.
Well,
for me, it's always about, gentlemen, start your engines.
Yeah. Well, I'll say a couple of things about that. One, I think that the kind of racing everybody's talking about here in this webinar it's really about struggling to join that top tier. That's the whole point of the exercise. I mean, you're doing this to get to that elite level. Whoever wins the race, whoever wins the most races in the year, whoever wins the most championships in their career, that's the point of the exercise, is that struggle. And that's great. And that's why motorsport exists. And that's what makes it compelling for so many people around the planet. But the vast majority of people understand they're not going to be that person. And for them to be able to also have all the other benefits of the activity, just as you said, when you're sitting in that seat and you're waiting for that green flag, it doesn't really matter whether you're in IndyCar or whether you're in a 1996 Grand Marquis. I mean, it matters a little, don't get me wrong, but you kind of get that feeling no matter what. When you're looking through that helmet and you're smelling your breath against it, and you're waiting and the cars are on either side of you, it's kind of the same. And to your point, iRacing now, it ain't that. There's no question. It's not that. In 10 years, is it going to be, 5 generations ahead? Are you going to get that same feeling? Maybe. I wonder about that with our business. The day will come when the virtual stuff's going to get pretty compelling, but I don't think it's there yet. That's a sidelight. I think the important thing for Lemons is there is that struggle to join that upper echelon, and that's what drives people in traditional motorsport. And then there's the rest of us who have no longer have any illusions, and there ought to be a place for those people too.
I agree with you, because to me, I'm still one of those people that I don't do very good with video games, because if the video game is,
I don't get it.
dealing with driving, I want to have a steering wheel in my hand. I want to be working it.
Yeah.
And if it's, if you're playing military stuff, I want something in my hand that represents what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's all about the real reality of what I'm looking for. So I can connect back with the realization of what is going on a racetrack, what is going on a road course. You know what I'm saying? It's got to resemble that. I'm not good at faking it, I guess you'd say.
Well, I mean, I agree with that, and there is this increasingly important role of the real world as we do more and more stuff virtually. You know, when COVID started, we had this office over in the East Bay in California, and that was the end of that office. I mean, we've all been remote ever since then, virtual. I have meeting every day, sitting in this chair, looking at this computer, and that's just going to continue for the rest of our lives. That leaves this bigger and bigger hole of, I am seeing you in person. I am sitting in a real car. You know, I am smelling the actual smells around there. So I think that's important. And I think racing, and particularly the kind of, you know, approachable racing that we've stumbled into, is important for that. As I said before, it used to be you had a bowling league or people would go to church every week. A lot of people don't have that. And to be able to say, okay, for the next 4 months, I'm going to that garage every Tuesday and Thursday, whatever it is, and we're going to get together for 5 hours. We're going to bond. We're going to socialize. We're going to work on the cars. You know, that's not something that is easy to find anymore. And I really think it's important. And it's not virtual. The fact that it's real life does matter.
Well, I've got a question here from Greg Garrick, and I find it very compelling, and it's at the same time a little bit humorous because it does involve me. And that is, what tracks do Lemons race on? Do you have any spectators? How does someone participate as a competitor? Are there older Medicare age drivers?
Well, these are all great questions. Great questions. So we do a couple of dozen races a year. Most of those are at individual tracks. We only go back to a couple twice. So, I mean, just for example, we're at Sonoma, we're at Thunderhill, we're at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. We're actually not at Sebring this year, but we're often at Sebring. We're at Barber. We're at, I don't know, pick a track, CMP. We go to NCM. We're all over the place. I mean, we're broken into 3 geographic regions in the country. And
do you race VMI?
Sorry?
Do you race VMI?
No, we do not. And we probably should. And in fact, if people want to throw onto the chat, hey, go here, go here, go here, I would love to see all those things. We do NJMP, we do Gingerman. I think we're going to Road America next year. You know, we're all over the place. They're big road courses. They have to be big enough paddock to hold a pretty big field. It has to be, you know, at least a couple miles really to work well for us. Has to have very professional safety stuff. So that's where we go. How do you participate? We have a really, I think it's the right answer. We are not experts in deciding who is qualified to drive a car or race a car, but there is an entire institution that is supposed to be determining who is competent and who's not, and that's the state. If you have a street driver's license, you can get on the track with Lemons. If you do not have a street driver's license, you cannot. Now, what that means, I'll say a couple of things about that. First, what that means is, for a lot of reasons, we have to be extremely aggressive about safety and about penalty enforcement and, you know, flags and flag observations. This is not an environment where you can say, oh, that's just racing. You know, you just can't do that in a situation like this. At any Lemons race, we will probably have a guy who has raced the Indy 500 and a guy who's never been on track before. And in an environment like that, you have to be as funny as we try to be and as welcoming as we try to be. You have to be incredibly aggressive about, you put a foot wrong, we need to talk about that, because we just can't have that. And when you approach it that way, and when you take the attitude that we try to take, and most people seem to understand, which is, hey, how can we help you suck less? That's what we're here to do. People get that, and they tend to internalize it. And the ones who don't get it, they don't come back, and we don't want them back. So it's kind of a self-selecting. So the answer to that is, if you have a street driver's license, we will let you get on track. And if you are a problem, we'll figure out why you're a problem. But the truth is, most people, the vast majority, 99.9%, they have a very healthy sense of fear. They understand what self-preservation looks like. First timers and newbies are not the problem. What we have learned is rookies are not the problem. The problem is not Greg Biffle, and it's not the guy who's never been a car. It's the guy in the middle who thinks he's better than he really is, and who is trying to shave a tenth of a second off in a gremlin, when what he should be doing is making sure that he doesn't put a foot wrong and leave the track and go into a hay bale. So until a guy or a girl gets out to a couple of years of experience on the track, we've found they're actually not very likely to have an incident, or they're not very likely to have a meaningful incident. Where you start getting into trouble is where people start to think they're Greg Biffle and they ain't Greg Biffle. But that's a few years down the road. As far as age, we have everything from guys who had their 16th birthday yesterday and they're racing today because they made sure to be at DMV first thing in the morning and get their license so they could race, to we have had this race won overall by an 81-year-old man, one of the best amateur drivers I've ever seen. And he was on a team with 3 of his family members, and because he was the fast guy, they just kept putting him in. This guy, I think that was a 14.5-hour total race. I think he probably drove 8 hours of that thing, and he was
Wow.
He was fast. He was humble. It was amazing. So it's any gender, any body. We have a lot of disabled drivers. We have a big proportion of female drivers. Not nearly as big as I'd like, but I think bigger than most other racing series. It is a welcoming environment, and what we try to do is say, if this is something that you want to experience or something you want to try and something you want to compete in, what can we do to make that safe and possible for you?
Well, real quick, I want to make sure I get an answer because you got people watching that love you. Scott asked about, country club type courses. I'm going to address that, Scott, here in just a second. Rich Oliver said, hey, it's a great program. Did it for years with middle school kids as pit crews. Parents drove, good times. What's up, Jay? So great to see you here today. And then Patrick Mulry, he says, hey, Lemons races at Audubon 1 times a year, some country club track, some are Barber, Road Atlanta, Sonoma, Thunderhill, Sebring. Houston went down the whole it's been Lemons since 2000. We said when we started this is how you can have fun, not racing.
Well, I missed most of that. You were cutting out, or maybe it's just me. But let's see. I'm going to the chat here myself. Tracks is London Race On. Yeah, and we do country club stuff. We do Autobahn. What we learned is a lot of tracks had some questions about us, and I don't blame them. I get it. And once we show up, I don't want to congratulate myself here, but once we show up, I think they realize we are behind the scenes. We're very organized. We're very professional. We really try to do it. So that's him and not me, right? So
sorry about that, Jay.
No
there's storms in North Carolina right now, so the internet was.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jay, for your time. And we're a big fan, of what you do. And you belong to that program because the whole purpose of Race Industry Week is to basically show everywhere there is racing activities from every level, professional, all the way down to grassroots and all around the world. So this week we're traveling around the globe and we are bringing on people from everywhere that have anything to do with motorsport. And so this is, everything starts at that level, at the grassroots, and those guys have kids that want to go racing, and then some will become professionals, others will just have fun, and that's what it's all about. And so thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you for everything you do in the industry.
Registering on ePartrade is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to ePartrade.